Hello everyone, hello divine beings, welcome to this Adventures of the Soul transmission video. Essentially what this video is, a little make cacao and chit chat with me. I'm going to be sharing my story around why cacao is such a big thing for me, why my whole channel is about it, how it's changed my life, and why I'm essentially obsessed with it. Or essentially, I feel it's my life path. So we're gonna go over all of it, the whole story, the whole situation. But before we get into that, we're going to drop in with making cacao together. This cacao recipe that I'll be showing you is one that I've been doing a lot lately. It's kind of a spin on spicy Mayan hot chocolate. This is cacao that I got from Ecuador. It is so yummy. It was made by a Belgium chocolate maker. So first thing you're gonna do is chop up 16 to 25 grams of cacao, depending on which cacao you've got. It usually has directions on the package, and if it doesn't, then safe to say 16 to 25 grams. I forgot to also mention to add a sweetener in here, so I have not put in the sweetener, but you can add in honey or maple syrup or anything else you enjoy. And then this is all of the ingredients that I'm putting in. I'm putting in a mushroom blend, ashwagandha, cinnamon, cayenne, maca, and your sweetener of choice. And then of course the cacao. And then just adding that all together into the blender. And then adding about 8 ounces of hot water, making sure it's hot, not boiling. I'm also adding in a sage tincture, clematis flower essence, and I'm adding this into my mug as just little tinctures to add into my cacao elixir, and then just blending that all together until it's smooth. And then we're going to drop in just into this moment. So I invite you to drop in with me, to just close your eyes, bring your cacao to your heart. Take some deep breaths with me, inhaling in, exhaling out. Again, inhaling in, exhaling out, and one more time, inhaling in and exhaling out, giving gratitude for your heart, giving gratitude for this cup of cacao, this plant medicine, to the lands that your cacao has grown upon, to all of the hands that have helped in making her. Sending gratitude to the spirit of cacao and inviting her into our hearts in this moment. And just taking a moment to send yourself love and send yourself and your heart a big thank you for showing up today and being here. Aho. So, my story with cacao. I actually first came across cacao on Instagram, and it was during the first portion of COVID and quarantining. So we had just started to quarantine and not a lot of people working. I was still working at a juice bar in Vancouver at this point in my life. And I was getting really into meditation, Kundalini yoga. Before COVID hit, I was working at a yoga studio and going to Kundalini yoga all the time. I wanted to like teach it. I was obsessed with it. I was doing yoga. And I was getting really into psychedelics as well, specifically psilocybin. And when I saw cacao online, it was actually, I think the first time I heard about it was through a podcast, De Luna's podcast, shout out De Luna. And they were talking with Mackenzie Marsloff about cacao and the spirit of cacao. And then I just started seeing it pop up everywhere. So I was definitely intrigued when I heard the interview. But then it started popping up on my Instagram, and the first company that I came across was Cacao Laboratory. And I watched a few of their videos of them making cacao and talking about how the smoke from the cacao or the scent from the cacao while you're making it is an offering to the ancestors, and how this ceremony is for your heart and you're here to commune with life and the earth and your heart and Pachamama. And I was just immediately like, this is exactly what I need. At that point in my life, I was going through a really, really big heart opening and a really big healing of intimacy, community, friendships, love, my own self-worth and confidence. And it was like a major dark night of the soul that I was going through and just coming out of. And I had just started to find spiritual modalities that were helping me. So when I went to go like search cacao, I like asked a bunch of people around me. It was nowhere to be found in Canada. Like none of the shops held it. Nobody was talking about it. Nobody in Vancouver was talking about it. Or at least in my circles. And everybody was really into tea ceremonies. So I had started getting into tea, and I took a tea course. So that's what kind of opened me up to elixirs and drinks and plant medicines in that way, as well as psilocybin. But I couldn't find it anywhere. So when I looked up Cacao Laboratory, I bought some of their cacao for the first time. And I went to buy it on their website, couldn't get it shipped to Canada. So I emailed them and was like, hey, can I get your cacao like shipped to Canada? And so they did. And I waited about, I think, 2.5 weeks or something. And then it came. And at this point, I had some knowledge around ceremony because I'd been working at the yoga studio. I'd been going to new moon and full moon events. I'd been working with tarot. I'd been meditating. So I understood how to create a sacred space and how to set up a essentially ceremony. And then when I got the cacao and I started making it and sat down with her, I could immediately feel her, and my heart was like so resistant. But I remember the first few times that I sat down and drank her, I bawled my eyes out. It was such a big emotional release for me, just as big as like having a mushroom trip or doing really intense breath work. Cacao was like, because I had been so shut down from love and like self-confidence and intimacy, from friendship and community, and from feeling like I was worthy of like love, that cacao just like blasted me open to the frequency of unconditional love. So if you don't know, cacao's main teachings are unconditional love, community, self-expression, intimacy, and creativity. But her main teaching is heart activation and unconditional love. So essentially it's opening up your heart chakra, and it is medicine for you nurturing your own self-love and nurturing your own heart. And I know that seems like something so small, But if you've never actually fully tapped into the frequency of unconditional love, or if you've never fully opened your heart, then she's gonna blast you open. Honestly, connecting to love in that way and having her as a guide is just so mind-blowing. Also, at the time I was getting really into herbal medicine. When I got cacao, I was starting to think about ways to be an entrepreneur, because I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always had businesses throughout my life, many different businesses. And at that time, I was getting really into herbs, and I was using hawthorn and rose to essentially connect deeper to love and my heart chakra. A year or two before that, I was really on the sacred sensuality path and like healing my pleasure and my sexuality. But now it had come to a place where like I need to open my heart in order to go any further in that journey. I need to heal the heart, because that is the root of it all. So at that point, I had been working with hawthorn and rose and motherwort and stinging nettles. I was also working with a bunch of herbs to try and heal my chronic fatigue that I was feeling at the time. And so when I got cacao, I started getting all of these creative, intuitive hits. And then I was thinking about what I would call my company, and Adventures of the Soul just like landed so quickly and was like, this is the name. It was just so me. It was like, this is me. This is my essence right now. This is my essence in life, is adventuring through all the realms of the soul and adventuring this life in a soulful way. So that was just beautiful how the creative downloads started coming in. Also, something that happened with cacao was I was deathly shy. If anybody knows me from like high school or my early 20s, I was so shy and afraid of people and was really scared of like making friends, or it was really hard for me to actually fully authentically express myself. And so what happened when I started drinking cacao is I started singing and playing guitar, which never in my life I thought I would do. And I started dancing. Ecstatic dance has become one of my biggest medicine, which I think is so intertwined with cacao, as you see the whole ecstatic dance and cacao movement coming from all around the globe. And I didn't even know about that at the time. I was just intuitively dancing, journaling, writing poetry. I was creating branding for Adventures of the Soul. And my life just became this open door of I'm allowed to express myself. My heart is opening so much, and I'm feeling so much gratitude for who I am and what I'm here to share and how I'm here to share it, that it just exploded. And ever since those first few ceremonies, just like in quarantine in my house by myself, it really freaking like that was the turning point in my life. So I think after I got into cacao, about 2 months later, I took a cacao facilitator training. Around the same time I took like my tea course. So I was doing cacao facilitator training, and then I was doing a tea course, and I was meeting all these amazing people, and I was doing ceremonies, and I started facilitating anyone and everyone that I could. I started bringing cacao home to my family, serving it to my friends. Me and my friend at our old place in Victoria were holding women's circles over Zoom during the pandemic to help in those times. And we were like having cacao ceremonies and doing breath work and doing yoga, and it was wild to me because in my astrology and in my human design and all of my charts, it always said you're here to be a leader, you're here to teach, you're here to be charismatic, you're here to be in community. And my whole life up until cacao was me being like, what the shit? What the crap is wrong with me? Like, why am I not open? Like, that's not me. I was like, I don't resonate with this at all. Astrology is wrong. Like, and it was just me essentially completely blocking out that door because of my heart chakra block and not being able to fully accept and love myself and express myself. After I took my cacao facilitator training, I was blown away. I was obsessed. I literally sat in Victoria in my room for about a year. Every morning I would have a cacao ceremony. I got really into embodiment. Anytime there was a cacao ceremony held online, I would go to it. I spent a good year really integrating that medicine and really doing it alone and healing myself. And sometimes I would hold ceremonies, obviously, like I said, or share cacao with friends or with family. But most of the time, I was just alone every morning drinking cacao. And that's what I was passionate about, was like meditating with cacao and conversing with her spirit. So just like cacao, when I got first introduced to ayahuasca, not physically, but the idea of ayahuasca and looking into her more, I immediately had her spirit come in, and ayahuasca's spirit stayed with me for over a year until I sat with her in the physical, and we were she was my spirit guide. I would converse with her a lot, and ayahuasca would show up to me as a grandmother spirit. As cacao, when I first called in cacao and started connecting with her, she came in as a motherly spirit, and then she transformed into a grandmother spirit as well as energy. I truly believe the spirit of cacao will show up in the way that you most resonate or the way that you most need at that time. And there will also be a time in your life where she just like full blown just like arrives into your life and calls to you. So essentially the myth goes that cacao stays dormant in the jungle, or stays dormant, or not dormant, but I guess just like hidden in the jungle until right now, when she flourishes back into humanity, into life, into all around the world, connecting with all these different souls, having all these different soul contracts, because humanity is ready to restore their hearts, because we're ready to heal our heart chakras and open them and come into unity consciousness. So essentially, cacao is facilitating this heart opening for all of humanity. But yeah, I would just meditate and connect to her spirit, and she was my number one spirit guide. I would channel her. That summer, I spent the entire summer just like going to beaches, going to rivers. My element is water, so I am constantly around water, or I'd be by the ocean and just drink cacao, do embodiment, or meditate and channel and connect to cacao spirit. Get these really spiritual downloads and channels from her. And this is really where I started channeling. Last year, I started selling cacao actually to the island, because it's really hard to get cacao here and you always have to ship it in. So I actually got around 100 pounds of cacao, and I was selling it, shipping it around the island, bringing it to ceremonies, trading it with people, essentially like kind of using it like currency like they did back in the day. We would bless the cacao, sound bole, and we would write runic codes on it, such as like, I am the light. We would cleanse it with crystals, and then we would pair it with an art card, and the art card is meant to be like a visual activation. So we are planning to do that again, hopefully next spring or summer, is bring cacao again to Vancouver Island, and also just more regularly available in Canada. So that's really how she came into my life, and then the facilitator training opened it up even further. And then that year of just like, I am fully in this by myself to integrate it and build this relationship with this plant medicine, that was potent for me. And now she's still a daily practice for me. Now I'm at a point of like, I want to share her with my community. I just did a art show in Ecuador before I left. My friend had an art show, and I was a cacao facilitator, and I basically served cacao to the whole party and talked to them about cacao and shared the heart medicine. And it was So beautiful facilitating that at an art show as well. And just being in community. I think another one of Cacao's like big teachings and big pushes in this life is if you feel like you're an introvert or if you feel like you're anxious or have social anxiety, she's 100% gonna call to you at some point, because Cacao is all about community, it's all about friendship, it's all about unity, and she pushes you to share in that way and to be vulnerable and show up in community as your fullest self, even if that scares you. To me, that was the scariest thing on the planet. But now it's something that my soul literally craves, to be in community, to share this medicine, to be around soul family. Everybody, every human secretly wants that, you know? Every human needs social interaction, needs intimacy, needs in-person loving. If you're feeling like you're someone who has a lot of anxiety or has a lot of introvertedness, I would recommend Cacao 100%. And that's not to say that being introverted is a bad thing. I'm still very good at like hanging out by myself and being in my art cave and just working on my art or just working on my courses or my business or hanging out with my partner. It's also, if you feel like hanging out with people and being in community is an edge for you, then that's probably an edge that you're meant to lean into. So Cacao is a great facilitator for that. Yeah, and she's just great at first opening up yourself to unconditional love, to self-love, to confidence within yourself and your self-expression, and that will lead to more outings, more connections, more opening yourself to people and opening your heart to life. I think that's it, my loves. That's essentially my story with Cacao. And yeah, this channel will definitely continue to be a guide for cacao ceremonies, meditations, connecting deeper. I also want to mention that in December, I have a cacao guide coming out. So it's going to be a guide on her history, her myths, her DNA, cacao as a superfood, and how she supports you on a scientific level, and then also how to connect to her spirit. I'm going to be teaching my personal cacao journaling practice that I do every morning. There's going to be guided meditations and activations for specifically connecting to cacao or your heart or to that frequency, along with a bunch of other goodies, recipes, basically all the goods on cacao and how to have your own sacred ceremony with her. Thank you so much for being here, my loves, and we'll see you in the next one.